Hi everyone, my name is Matt Ferguson and welcome to another Sonar Spotlight interview. And this time around, I'm pleased to be joined by Effie Binder, who's CEO and co-founder of Futura Genetics. Now I'll leave Effie to go into more detail about his business in a moment. But in short, they've developed a system that provides life insurance clients with genetically based medical recommendations. We'll expand on that in a moment, but aside from having an opportunity to get to talk to an expert about some pretty fascinating technology in a fairly rapidly evolving space, the role of genetic data has and will continue to become increasingly significant for us. We see that pretty regularly in our trend analysis, and not least in the life space, but also in the broader wellness space too, with this ability to help us, well, firstly, identify and treat, but also predict and prevent a whole range of diseases. And as a result, then that becomes an enabler for increasingly personalized treatments to be delivered. Now, whether you find that incredibly scary or incredibly exciting, the reality is that it's here to stay, and it's going to have pretty profound implications on the world of insurance, and indeed our lives too, I think. So, Effie, that's more than enough from me, I think. Perhaps you could kick us off and tell us a bit about yourself and introduce Futura Genetics.
So thank you, Matt, for that introduction. It's a pleasure being here today. I'm Effie Binder, the co-founder and CEO of Futura Genetics. My background is in economics. I have a BA in economics and MBA, and I used to work at management consulting for several years before opening my first direct-to-consumer genomics company 7 years ago. What we did back then is provide some basic analytics to users based on their genetics, basically sending a very nice PDF. We worked for 4 years and we sold mostly to the United States. And then I realized that something is missing. And what is missing is the ability to do something when the genetic test ends. And another thing that was missing is that people are reluctant to pay for preventive medicine. Preventive medicine is a privilege. You pay for something today, but you get it far ahead in the future. And this is a privilege that not a lot of us can afford. But then we wrapped our minds around it and realized that maybe someone else have the proper incentives to pay for such preventive medicine. And it would need to be very, very efficient preventive medicine in order for them to pay. And this is where Ram Varsha and I founded Futura Genetics and decided to go after insurance companies, and more specifically, life insurance companies, as their role is starting to evolve, then not just an agent that allows you to buy something that reduces your risk, but also something that is being more proactive. And I think this is what we're seeing today all around the insurance space. The insurance trying to be more proactive in, first of all, anticipating the risks, and then empowering its own customers with tools to mitigate that risks. And we have seen it happen all around the insurance industry. I really like to think about car insurance and all the technology involved over there, with a lot of Israeli technology like Mobileye and Nexar, and things that helps the driver anticipate risks and then avoid them. But doing the same in the life and health space, it's something very, very, very tricky, because you need not only to anticipate when someone would get ill or even die, but you also need to have the ability to give him tools that are so effective that they would have an actual effect on his life expectancy. And this is what we're doing at Futura Genetics.
Fantastic. And so how do these, you've touched on a few trends there. Could you expand on the kind of the key ones for Futura, and actually how do those fit with what you're doing, and how your business meets the needs that they represent?
So thank you for asking. So I mentioned anticipating risks and empowering. And this is what Futura Genetics is uniquely doing for the life insurance space, anticipating the risks and giving tools. And I will soon talk about Futura and the kind of tools that we are giving. But this is not the only trend that is going on. We see insurance companies try to give more value to their customers. And one of the main trends today is the wellness trend, from companies like Vitality and their program, and in the UK we know Your Life, and very interesting programs that are running everywhere. And nowadays it seems that almost every insurance company wants to have their own wellness program. So this is a trend that is evolving. And sometimes we as a company, we see the trend and we think, okay, let's go with the trend. And sometimes when everyone looks to the left, this is the time to look to the right. And wellness, it's very, very fun and cool and very interesting for the client. But there is the question of the things that they're doing. Are they really changing their behavior for the long term? Will it have an actuarial effect on the way that insurance are working? Or is it just a marketing tool to bring in customers? So when we built Futura Genetics, we wanted to be much more than just another marketing tool or another wellness program. So instead of going to that wellness direction and try to make people exercise more, eat healthy, stop smoking, all those very, very important things. But as we know, the case that people really change their behavior for a long period of time are kind of rare. So in Futura Genetics, we decided to go the clinical way. And with the genetic information, we have the ability to recommend and also motivate people to perform actions that have a proven clinical impact. And these actions are single-time actions with significant impact on health. For example, let's say we've discovered someone with a predisposition towards colon cancer. The most important thing right now, and this is clinically validated, is to get that person to do that colonoscopy test. Of course, depending on his age and assuming he's on the right age. Why? Because this is already an area with very, very low compliance, around 50% in the United States and 30% in Europe. I always thought that European would be more compliant, but in this case, there aren't. And the impact is huge, and you only need to do it once. So for us as a company, if we want to motivate someone to lose weight, we need to convince them every day to change his diet. But to do that colonoscopy test, we need to convince him only once. Maybe today we didn't succeed in that, but tomorrow we will. And eventually we will get him to do that, that test. And I will go back soon to what kind of motivations we are using. Another trend that is important when thinking about genomic is the regulatory environment and how the regulators see genomic information. And genomic information is treated very differently in different places around the world. Europe, the European countries are leading in the anti-genetic discrimination. What does it mean? If an insurance company would know some people what they are predisposed, they would never insure them. And this is a problem for society. So it doesn't matter if we're pro or against it. In many places, the regulator said this kind of information is not to be used in underwriting. In the United States, the situation is a little bit more tricky. We have GINA, which is the Genetic Anti-Discrimination Act, but this applies only to health insurance. So in life insurance, theoretically, you can use genetic information, but some states already deny that option. And the regulatory wind is blowing towards not allowing it at all. In Asia, things are still open, but some places have practices of not using genetic information, even though the law allowed it. For example, Japan. So Futura Genetics was built from the ground up to work with very strict regulation, to find a way how to use genetics to the benefit of the insurance company without using it in the underwriting process and without compromising on user privacy. And this is something very, very new, because still when I'm talking to people today, everyone, oh, genetics, insurance, surely you know how to make the underwrite better. Yes, we can do it, but this is illegal. And even in the place where it's legal, it's not the regulatory environment that will be there in 5 or 10 years. And the last trend that is important to the genetic space as well, I think, is the growing asymmetry. People today have the ability to know much more than the insurance company. And if we think about where genetics is heading and the direct-to-consumer market, and the fact that today everyone has some kind of access to genetic information and he can know about himself much more than the insurer, so this asymmetry is just growing and growing. And we need to find creative ways in order to close the gap of asymmetry. And I think what we did here in Futura is a very, very clever way for insurance to harness the power of genomics and enjoy the benefit it can bring in a regulatory compliant way. So in fact, the insurance company is helping the client know more about himself, but at the same time, we make sure that that client is really acting upon that information, improving his health, improving his life expectancy, and therefore, at the end of the day, the insurance company is not losing from that asymmetry, is actually benefiting from it, because the customer is now being proactive in preventing medicine and is being proactive in early detecting diseases. That has a crucial effect. So I think that's covered all the trends that Futura is working in.
Effie, I think that's possibly the most comprehensive answer to a question I've ever had. Thank you for that. Like, it begs a question in my mind about, you cited the example of in the wellness space, and vitality is a classic, right, where you've got proactive nudges on a consistent basis, reward programs that reinforce and underpin the program. What you do then, do you think, complementary or an alternative to those kind of approaches? How do you position it?
I think it's complementary to it. Like I said, wellness and losing weight and stopping smoking and all of that is very, very important. And it's certainly not contradict each other, and it can be complementary. There is a lot of wellness insights that can come from genomic information as well. And we chose to work, first of all, on the clinical things where we know it will have an actuarial effect. And why? Okay. We wanted the insurance company to pay. This is what's happening today. Insurance companies are paying for our service, and the users are getting the entire service as a free benefit that they can choose to opt in or opt out. And in order to be able to give this as a benefit, we have to be cost effective. We have to be, this is not just a benefit that the insurance company is paying and they will never see the money back. They will see it, actually they will see it 20 times fold back in savings, and even more in improved persistency. Users, clients that are getting such a great service are not about to cancel their life insurance or move to the competitor immediately. This is a strong differentiator from the competition, having such a unique service. And people that we've changed their life are forever in gratitude to the insurance company that they provided this information, and they usually are talking about it to friends, to family, so they pass on that information.
Yes, super interesting. So what I've just realized we've got so this far through the interview, and we've talked about services, but we haven't actually described what those services comprise of. Could you take us through and give us a run through what the
yes. So I touch many points of what we do, but now we will actually explain how we help life insurance companies prolong their life of their customers. And so clients are receiving an offer post underwriting, because we're not taking part in the underwriting process at all, and we want to make sure that the clients understand it. So this offer comes after the underwriting is done, and people get an offer to do a DNA test. The DNA test is a non-invasive. It's done in a very similar fashion to what you may be familiar from companies like 23andMe, Ancestry, MyHeritage, and so on. But the sequencing technology and the bioinformatics are completely different. We analyze over 100 different conditions related to health in the human genome. And we also analyze non-genetic information, currently kind of simple, height, weight, few lifestyle habits. And then our genetic algorithm analyzes all that information. And out of this enormous amount of information, we show users with only the top 3 things that they should act upon now in order to stay healthy longer. And the first thing that every user is doing is setting up an appointment with a genetic counselor, a licensed genetic counselor, depending on the state or territory that is present. And only on that meeting will the result appear in front of him. This is very important, not just to obey regulation in certain territories, but mostly to give the right context. We don't want people to be overwhelmed or misunderstand their health situation.
And these, sorry, Effie, are these, is this a Futura genetics network?
Yes, correct. We have an in-house genetic counselor. We hire them. We also have a service to help us with peaks when we have demand peaks, but this is a mandatory. Every user in the service go through that session, and the genetic counselor would also explaining about the system and motivate him to do the results. So it's not just our AI calculated, you should do A, B, and C. There is a real life person sitting there and talking to you, a very personal experience. After that experience is over, the user goes into the system where he sees tasks, those single time actions with significant impact, what he needs to do. And we don't give tasks for everything we analyze. We try to keep the entire user experience towards action, towards motivating. And if taking care of your own health is not motivating enough, we also give points that can be accumulated and then redeemed at the store for cash value prizes, things like Amazon gift card, things that have value in order to motivate the people to perform the action. Another big motivator is that this is a very personal experience. We talked about the wellness program. Think about wellness. We're basically trying to motivate the same behavior in everyone. Everyone should exercise. Everyone should eat the same diet. And those things are generally correct, but they are not personal. And being personal is not just being more accurate for what it's good for you, but it's also a big motivator, because it's not anymore the general recommendation, I should do my blood work this year. There is something very personal and unique about myself, about my own genetics, that I should take care about. And this is a big motivator as well. So this is the product, and people interact with it. And since we test a lot of the human genome, and we're able, by the way, to do it very cost effectively thanks to our partnership with Illumina, and we have a lot of information, so we're able to give you over time more and more analytics without you having to take the test again. And some of those analytics are actually features that are being unlocked. So the more you perform tasks, you get more analytics, more insights, and you engage more with the system.
Okay, so there's ongoing sort of tangible benefits, which I guess been a holy grail for insurers in, in a lot of markets for some time, right?
Yeah, this also one of the problems in life insurance. I think two main problems. Life insurance today is a commodity, and what happens with commodity? It's a race to the bottom in price, and I think that starts to change. And what we offer to life insurance is a way to make their life insurance not just life insurance, but to give life assurance and to have something more unique in their value proposition. So it's no longer a commodity. It's something else. Another big problem of life insurance is the contact with the customer. Usually there is contact in the underwriting, and then we either don't talk at all for the entire life, or there is a claim. So Futura is changing that. We give the ability to carriers to control what's inside the store, the same store that people are redeeming the points they're accumulating, so they can promote insurance product. If I'm an insurance company and I have my life insurance business, but I also have an home insurance business, totally unrelated, but I can give it as a gift inside the store. So my clients are seeing another of my offerings. So I have multiple touch points throughout the life of the customer, again and again.
Okay, so there's an additional embedded channel that they can
Correct.
use.
Correct.
Okay, interesting. Well, lots more we could go into. We could go into that on its on its own. But I'm listening to all of this, and it sounds fantastic. What's the cost of this stuff? Because it's, the world of genomics is not necessarily a cheap place to operate, right? How does that translate into delivering a cost-effective service to insurance clients?
Okay, so first of all, our ability to make it such cost-effective is, I mentioned our partnership with Illumina. Illumina is like the Google of genetics, and they support us in many ways. And thanks to them, we were able to have our own sequencing technique that is combining a few other techniques into one streamlined process. And this gives us a very, very cheap price point. Still, this is something costly. This is not yet in the range of a few dollars. The model that we are working is a very fair model, is a usage-based model, meaning that the carrier is paying only for his clients that are actually using the service. In the cases that let's say a client is doing the genetic test, genetic counseling, all of that is being active for 1 year, and then he loses interest. Obviously, this is something that happens from time to time. In this case, the carrier won't need to pay anymore. As long as we're not making effect, he will not pay. The price today is $8 a month. So it's only for active users and only if we're making an impact.
Okay, so actually, relatively cost effective.
It's very cost effective. Let's talk a little bit about ROI and savings, if you don't mind.
No, I was going to say, there's a longer term trade-off in terms of prolonging life expectancy or offsetting the occurrence of what would otherwise be preventable diseases will far outweigh that sort of cost. I see.
And I think I will touch that point with a case study to give some example how we really work and in making savings for the carrier. So in one case, we had this male with term insurance until the age of 70. He had 30 years left on his life insurance. And we discovered an hyperclockability mutation. 0.5% of the population have this mutation. So it's not that rare, but it's very underdiagnosed. It's not the kind of things you would get at a 23andMe test.
Could you, sorry, I think I'll put my hand up and say I'm one of the audience who may not understand what that is. Could you explain what it is in lay terms?
What it is? What hyperclockability?
Yeah.
Okay. Hyperclockability means that your blood is getting clogged. If your blood is getting clogged,
it's actually not. It's not that. There's nothing terribly complicated in the description. Yeah. Even better. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's getting clogged. And the blood getting clogged, it's not a good thing because it can lead either to heart attack or stroke. If it's a woman, it can end up in miscarriages during a pregnancy. And many people are not aware they have a genetic defect and they go about their life. In our case, this person, due to his unique features, have 50% chance of dying from a stroke or a heart attack during the time of his insurance. Literally a ticking time bomb, first of all for himself, but also to the carrier. He went through the entire process, ending up at his physician. And if your blood is getting clogged, you basically need something to unclog it. So a treatment simple as blood thinner, a medication as simple as aspirin sometimes. So this person is on medication now, and obviously he's still at risk, so he's not at 0, but his chances reduced to 10%, 40% gap in his likelihood to survive. So in this case, he was insured for $1 million, 40% less in that means $400,000 in future savings that we can safely guarantee that this is the average for people with this kind of problem and his profile. And this is just one person. So what we did at our proof of concept together with AAG, we accumulated many cases like this where our intervention effect was very clear cut. And the intervention was quantified, and we got to an ROI of 22x on the money. Obviously, this depends on the face value. The ROI is higher as the face value grows higher.
So yeah, I'll reframe it. So it's it generates significant savings and long term.
Yeah, such great savings that is actually a good move for a carrier to distribute, to take care of the health of their clients. And this is made possible only if we're really able to influence the customer. And this is why we're not taking payment when we are not making an impact anymore. And everyone in the company behind me knows that. That we will not get paid if they will not take care of long-term engagement and make sure we find more and more creative ways in which we can help people and motivate them to do those single-time actions that can really change their lives.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it kind of begs the question now as to look, this all sounds incredibly exciting, Effie. What's next for Futura Genetics, and where do you go from here?
So we want to serve the insurance industry as much as possible. And in order to do that and improve our product and offering, we're working on 2 major runways. One is obviously getting more customers. And this is what we're doing today with our launching of a series of internal trials, we call it. Before an insurance company can feel comfortable to market such an innovative service for the first time to their millions of clients, they need to feel a level of trust and to harness key people within the organization. So these days we're doing a series of internal trials with US carriers. Those trials are 100 to 300 people, including a customer focus group and agents, depending on the selling method of the company. And this is one step before going out on a full scale to the market. So that's the customer lane. And on the other path that we're taking is funding. Obviously, we will need more money in order to make our product best and to influence the life of many more people. So we're actually starting a funding round in 3 weeks. There will be announcement about that. So you should follow us on LinkedIn to get the updates on that, and there would be opportunities to invest. And we're looking for partners who can share our vision and what we're trying to do in the insurance world and the world entirely.
Fantastic. Well, extremely exciting, and maybe you can help us break the news of the funding round first at Sonar. But hugely exciting. Congratulations, and yeah, really looking forward to hearing how it goes.
Thank you, Matt. It was a pleasure being here today.
No problem. Thank you for your time. We'll chat soon.
Okay.